Bum, 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 bum,
Hello,
bum.
everybody. Welcome to today's My Games Recruitment Show, fully with a song introduction from Pete today. Today, as you can see, we're going to be talking about how we can use content, how to actually make use of content to win clients and boost sales. We're going to kind of tie it back to the money, which is the focus. And as you can see, Mike has kind of de-aged by 25 years, or is it Mike 2.0?
It's Mike 2.0. Better, stronger, faster.
I mean, there's a debate there. But yes, we are joined by Pete today, who is our king of content. So it seems right to have you here today, Ped. How you doing?
It felt like it was very much my kind of show. I'm fabulous. Thank you very much. I've been enjoying the sunny weather, and I'm delighted to be here today.
Fantastic. Okay, so Ped, what we're going to be talking about today is content, as we spoke about.
Yep.
But we're going to be talking about how we can use it for a second. But can we just kind of come back and just remind everybody about the benefits of content?
Yes. Okay. To be honest, before we even do that, I'd like to just draw a very, very quick definition of content because I see people sometimes get confused. It's a very natural one, but it's a confusion. Content is anything you've got of value to your target market, target audience, right? So they see it and they're like, yes, I want that because it's useful, interesting, valuable to me. It's not collateral. If you've got some content which is fundamentally just promoting your service in either a very explicit way or even a slightly surreptitious way, it's not really content, it's collateral.
Okay.
So content is things that are of value. Collateral are things that promote you and your business in a very overt way. So just a distinction worth drawing.
So collateral would be like if you had an event and you were just saying like, this is how great our event was with the speaker. That would be classed as collateral.
That's collateral. That would be a bit borderline. That would probably be content. What would be a more classic example is 5 tips to improve your retention. And option number 1 is use a really great recruiter like us. Right? That's collateral. Everybody knows it is. Don't hide it. So that's the distinction. Content's of value. It really helps the person you're trying to give it to. So with that in mind, we can get on to what the benefits are.
Yeah.
So the number 1 benefit, which we're here to talk about, is that it makes money. We're going to go into that in detail. Yeah, money, filthy, stinking lucre. The second thing is that it's reusable. So, quite traditionally, we engage with our target market going out for drinks. We make referrals to them, tickets to the rugby, all sorts of things that you can only really give away once, or you can only give to a limited number of people. Content, you could in theory give it to the whole world if they wanted it. Once it's given, you've still got it. That's something to think about. So the benefit of content over just your natural ability is it's reusable and it's scalable. So the third one is that it's scalable. We love the scalability here at Flair. So once you've taken the time to create a piece of content, which is quite often an extraction from your head of what you know, you've got these 15 years experience as a recruiter, you can get on the phone, you can keep a prospect engaged in conversation, witty banter, demonstrate your insights, all of that stuff. But the 1-year experience recruiter you brought in straight from grad school can't because they don't have that ability. You give them content and you just teach them, right, just bring the conversation around to this topic and then offer the content. They get 80-90% of the kudos you get for knowing it just for having it and offering it
at the right time.
That's what makes it scalable. So all the things we're about to talk about, anybody can do. Even someone with 6 months experience can be taught to use content to do the things that will boost and create money.
Okay, and that's what we really wanted to focus on today. Is very often people will spend sometimes money creating content. They'll have larger pieces that they'll get people to design and make look fancy, and then it just sits on their intranet and it just sits there. Or they do use it and they say, well, we never got anything back from it. But we have, I believe, 4 things. 4 ways in which you can use content, which can be traced back to getting new clients and ultimately putting more money on your bottom line. Isn't that right?
Yes, and I'm going to pick up on what you said there, Kirsty, to go into the first one about we produced a piece of content once and we put it on LinkedIn and nobody took it. It didn't result in any work, right? So you broadcast it, but you broadcast it in one event, in one way, once.
Yeah.
Right? The trick with content is that you broadcast it continuously.
The same piece over and over again, is that what you mean?
Same piece over and again, and you break it down, you shatter it. I refer to it as shattering. There's lots of different phrases for it, but you take that piece of content and say, there's 50 points in here, and each point becomes an individual LinkedIn post or a couple of infographics, but you're constantly pushing out this content, and that does a number of things for you. It leads to the money like this. First of all, it just reminds people you exist because it's valuable.
Big one,
More
yeah.
people see it, LinkedIn promote it, those sorts of things. It reminds people you exist. So when a piece of work comes in and someone needs to hire, you're front of mind compared to all the other people who ring up once every 3 months to ask if there's any work. So you're constantly front of mind for your clients, constantly front of mind for the prospects that are near to using you. It adds value to people. So
It should add value, right?
It adds value, should add value. If it's good content, it will add value. And you're adding value to lots of people for one post. It's incredibly time efficient to add value to the people at the very bottom or at the very top of your funnel who you barely know. You don't have time to invest in individually, but you're adding value to all of them that access it. And that moves the relationships forward at scale. We love scalability here at Flair.
Big fans.
It positions you. You know, the mere exposure effect I've talked about in the past is the more someone is exposed to you and what you do and what you stand for, the more they're going to grow to like you. It's a human psychological quirk. We like things we see a lot. And if I see you a lot on LinkedIn, on Twitter, advertised or natural, whatever it is, then I'm going to grow to like you. And this, it may sound like this is, a little distant, but this really works. I have a client who has had 3 high value, we're talking sort of 5-figure fee clients, come to him and say, I've seen your stuff on LinkedIn. I love it. We're hiring. I want to use you. Right? It works. There are a lot of recruiters on here who are very active on this platform, producing great content, great posts, and they do it when I ask them because work comes in.
Yeah.
So it leads to the money, but it doesn't do it when you post it once. That's the common mistake.
Yeah, I think that's the thing with broadcasting is it's sort of a longer time period strategy. It's not like a one post specific, I'm going to be able to face it back to this. It's more of a positioning yourself in the market sort of thing. It's more about having the long game rather than the short game, isn't it?
It's one-to-many. It's early stage relationship. And it just, even when things get busy, which they do sometimes, it means that even your best clients, you don't have time to call, and you absolutely should. You don't have time. It makes sure that they're just reminded you exist. And they, oh, yeah. I remember Kirsty. She's a value adder. Haven't spoken in a while, but she still sent me this, even though you have no idea that they've taken it. So it's brilliant.
Okay, so that's what most people think of when they have content, isn't it? Most people think about putting it on LinkedIn or on Twitter or on Facebook or whatever. But there are other ones. What's the next one, Ped?
The next one is that you use it to go direct to the client.
Okay.
So this moves from the one-to-many to the one-to-one. These are relationships that are a little further down the line. Perhaps you are making regular phone calls, you are seeing each other, or you want to. It's a great way to move from an electronic to an actual verbal relationship on the phone. And what it gives you is a reason to interact. Now, let's ask the audience this one. How many times have you called a contact, a hiring manager, just for a check-in? Not to explicitly ask for work, but just because something had come up, we had seen something, and you end up walking away from that phone call with a new piece of work. A piece of work which you might not have got if you hadn't had that call. Most recruiters I know can share stories about that kind of occurrence. In fact, I had one on the GAP program that we do recently, which is a collection of recruiters come together, who shared that he used to use the debt collection calls, the unpaid invoice calls, as a BD tool. It was just a reason to interact. Get on the phone. Yeah, where is it? Cool, thanks. Yeah, how's things? What's going on? Oh, yeah, we're hiring. Brilliant, right? You just need reasons to interact. What's hard is having a reason to interact once you've already tried the, hey, how are things? Checking in. Got any work?
And this is really common amongst, when we talked about earlier, if you've got a team of people, if you've got junior people, and you just say to them, call your clients, call them up, and they go, okay, but they never do it because they've got nothing to talk about. So this is a great way of getting them to do that, isn't it?
It is. It's perfect. And, a lot of recruiters don't even realize that when they make those phone calls, they don't check in. They actually share market intelligence, share some gossip, ask questions that show they understand the market. Someone with 1 year experience cannot do that. This is perfect. You can have someone with 3 months experience ring up and say, hey, listen, I know you haven't spoken to us for a while. I'm new. We've got this. I thought I'd ask you if you're interested. It's just an excuse for an interaction. It doesn't matter whether or not they actually want it. You've reminded them you exist. You've created the opportunity for a piece of work to come in. And those are two very important things with prospects and with clients. The other thing it will do for you is that if you do it right, if you pick a piece of content that reflects a conversation you've had historically with the person, it's not just sort of a bit of a shotgun, see if they're interested. You go like, you said this, we've got this. It shows that you listen, that you care, right? And recruiters have a reputation for being a little one-dimensional and a little money-focused, which I don't think is fair, because all of our clients are the exact opposite. But there are those recruiters out there, and they get about.
A bad name. Yeah.
They give everyone a bad name. So you want to stand differentiated from those people. We'll talk about differentiation in more detail later, but saying, I've got this piece of content, I listened, I give a monkeys. There you go. That's it. That's all I wanted. Thanks. Bye. That puts you in stark contrast to what people think lots of recruiters are. And that secures clients, and it moves you closer to being a provider to the people who are prospects.
Okay. So I have a question on this one. Is when I'm sending something directly to a client, in my head, there are two options for me to do that. So let's say I'm going to pick LinkedIn just to do this. Do I send them it and say, like, what are your thoughts on it? Or do I ask them and say, would you care to see this piece of content I've got? What would you suggest?
Well, I would suggest the second one. A lot of people do the first one because it's faster. It's one email rather than two if they come back and say yes, right? And that's a massive mistake for a couple of reasons. One, if you've misjudged and you've sent them something that's useless or talking down to them, or just irrelevant, then you've done a little bit of damage to the relationship. You've shown you don't listen. You've shown you don't understand. You've just irritated them. You've created noise in their world, and they're already very busy, right? So doing that does that. Asking the question does two things. One, it prevents all of that. It's like, are you interested in this? I wasn't sure. Yes, I am. No, I'm not. No, I'm not doesn't do any damage anymore. Protects you from that. Second thing it does, it allows people to self-select. So especially in that mid stage of your pipeline where there's a bit of interaction, but you can go to them and say, would you like this? And they say yes. They've shown, the people who actually come back with a yes or a no say, I'm engaging with you. Those people get a few more points, in the CRM. They get a little bit more attention. They are the ones you should put more focus on because they're willing to engage with you. And that's very important to do as well.
And that's also handy when you have got junior people about teaching them to build relationships as well and stuff like that. So
yes,
Judith agrees with you, saying having a reason for a call makes it a lot easier. Something that you've seen or whatever, something you've created. So glad you agree with us, Judith. Glad you agree. Okay, so Ped, what's the next one? Because I know that the next one is probably, in my mind, the closest to the money, I think.
This is we've been moving steadily close to the money, working our way down the funnel. And this one really, for me, is the biggest and most impactful. It's about using your content in the center of a campaign. Now, I'm not going to go into what a campaign is. Mike has done a whole show on AIDA campaigns, which I highly recommend you watch.
I will pop it in the comments once we've finished. I'll go and pop it in the comments. So if you're watching this as a recorded, just scroll down and you'll see it's there.
Yeah. Fundamentally, what a campaign does, it gets somebody to engage with you, right? And it increases the likelihood of doing it. So it's a series of interactions at the hook of which is, I've got something you want. If you want it, you've got to talk to me. And it's brilliant for starting relationships, knocking on doors, especially for those people who are extremely well protected in high value prospective clients, the ones you cannot get to from cold calling, no matter how hard you try. The gatekeepers are in the way, and if you do, they're annoyed, right? These people will respond to this because we've seen it with multiple clients across multiple service lines. It works, and it will start relationships, and then you can also use it to transform relationships. So if you use a piece of content at the core of that to start the conversation, fabulous. If you use an event content, and events are content.
Yeah.
An important line. Events are content. If you use an event as the hook of the content of the campaign, and you say, listen, we've been doing this dance a little bit. I'd like you to come to this event. You're transforming the relationship then from something electronic at distance to we've met, we've chatted, we've spent time together. And from that stage, recruiters know this, relationships lead to clients, and you're moving the relationship much further towards that opportunity for a pitch or to get a piece of work. So campaigns, phenomenal use of content, and they are, to me, the closest to the money. Even if you do them at the start, every campaign I've ever known, if you do them, most people come into the pot of interesting, like the fact that you've done this, you're a bit different from most recruiters. We're just not looking right now, but keep in touch. Yeah. That's what you use the broadcasting and the direct to client pieces for, to keep in touch without being a pest, constantly adding value. But somebody always comes out saying, oh, you know what? Glad you called, and you're doing it a bit different, so I'm going to give you a shot.
Yeah.
So even at the very start of the funnel, it can lead to work. Mid-funnel, it moves you closer. And at the very end, you can actually do a campaign, which is, I've got something I want to sell, especially if you've got a latchkey.
Yeah, because with campaigns, we do various ones. So we can do conversion campaigns, you can do first contact campaigns, you can do direct to sale campaigns. But I do want to sort of come back to this point of how an event can be a piece of content. Because very often with content, you think of it as being like a PDF or maybe a video or something. But what do we mean by events? We do mean in-person ones where you get around and drink like Chardonnay and have cheese. But we also do online events, don't we?
Yes, we do. And remember, and content is anything of value. So you've got to get away from this idea of PDFs. It can be courses, it can be events, it can be roundtables, it can be tickets to something really, but it's a value. So you can impart value in lots of different ways. Webinars are effective still. I think they're a great way to get people, especially to get them exposed to you in this kind of context. People act like they know us because they watch the show. Same thing applies on webinars. You can make it a bit more back and forth. So you can have roundtables online, small groups. And then, of course, you can do exactly the same thing in person. So you can do roundtables, lunches. You can buy a bunch of tickets to a conference. My favorite one, if you're in an industry which has some really big conference events, but you don't want to pay the £10,000 to get a stand, which of questionable of value, what you can do is you can do a fringe event. So, the Fringe up in Scotland, Comedy Fringe, actually the number of things officially part of the event, very small. Just everybody's like, oh, well, if everyone's coming, I'll get any back room I can. So you find a nice restaurant within walking distance of the hotels near the conference suite or on the way back from the conference to the train station. You say, listen, we're putting on a dinner. We're going to have an interesting speaker. It's on the same day as the event and it's right next door. Would you like to come? For way less money.
Yeah.
Way less money than exhibiting. And I personally love that. There's a lot we could talk about events.
Yeah.
I will just say, actually, if anybody wants us to do a show on events and how to run them and get value from them, pop a 7 in the comments. We'd love to. We'll make that happen.
Yeah,
but anyway, that's events and campaigns.
Okay, so I think campaigns are probably the one that most people think of when they're thinking of how to use content, using it to get money. But you have one more in the list. What's this one?
Yeah. So this is not so much a usage. This is kind of like one of the things I really wanted to draw out that content can do for you compared to not content. Right? It allows you to differentiate. We touched on this earlier when we talked about broadcasting. Most recruiters out there do just hit the phones, try and be engaging, maybe share a bit of intel. They don't do a lot to add value to the clients. This differentiates. It really makes you stand out if you have things that are of genuine value to the clients. And what it shows that you understand their world, that you're an expert if you share content which is yours, your knowledge imparted to them, or that you know the right people. There's a difference. So if you're an expert, you share what you know in your content. If you're a facilitator, so if you're somebody who can't share what you do because it's just not sexy enough, and recruitment kind of falls into that camp a little bit, what you can do is you can show who you know. So I know someone, for example, who runs a podcast. That's their piece of content. And what they do is they get in senior leaders from their industry and they interview them about their career progression and how they moved from one of the pack to being one of the few.
One of the big dogs.
One of the big dogs, yeah? Now, that recruiter is asking like 4 questions and then sitting there and nodding. They're not showing any expertise. What they are doing is they are showing who they know, and they're giving value to their market who want to learn how to be more like the people who he's got as guests.
Okay.
There's lots of different ways you can. Mike does it all the time on the show. We've had people talk about things Mike knows nothing about.
Yeah, some of our most popular shows, as a matter of fact. Yeah, and it's and you get as well with that is you get a wider audience as well. But I think this one is so underestimated, differentiation, because especially if you're in sort of more red water industries like recruitment, there's a lot out there. There's a lot of people who do it, and no one uses content in this way.
The thing with recruitment is a lot of the differentiators, the real differentiators, are backloaded. You don't know they're true until I use you as a service. What are you? I'm customer focused. We go the extra mile to find candidates. We're experts in the field. We really understand it. Interesting. The other 4 recruiters I spoke to this morning all said exactly the same things.
Yeah.
Only yours is true. The others are making it up. The person on the phone doesn't know and can't tell the difference, right? This content sits before they ever work with you. What are you? I'm a value adder. And let me give you value before you ever use me. Okay, interesting, right? Stands out, makes a real difference because so few people do it.
Yeah.
And that's what unlocks conversations. Like, well, you said that, so the rest is probably true. You are an expert. You do know what you're doing. You do have an exceptional level of insight to the market. Let's get you in and give you a go.
Yeah.
So
I would say as well,
really works.
with this, Mike and I have been doing the show for a long time. We both are we're all, as a company, we're very content rich. We give a lot away. And I've spoken to a couple of people who've said the stuff that you give away offers such value. So I know that when I pay for it, it's going to sort of go up a gear. So it's almost like saying, like, I'm so good, I'm giving you this much now. Imagine what you get when you actually, like, when we work together.
Yeah, and there is you can carry that through. For us, it's easy because what we give is we give knowledge. Some of that knowledge we give in free content. Some of that knowledge we share through consulting. Harder to do is you can't give, a free. Well, you can give a freebie placement, but I wouldn't in this market. But what you can do is keep giving content, but you can save the really good stuff, the roundtables, the access to the right people for your clients. So you can say, this is the content you get. And when you're a client, you get this as well. You can do that. That's perfectly replicatable from what we do as well.
Okay, all right. So, Ped, we've sort of gone through the 4 ways that you can use content. You can broadcast it, which is what a lot of people do. You can use it in one-to-one conversations with people, sending it directly via email, LinkedIn, and using that to start and develop conversations. You can use it in campaigns, and you can use it to differentiate yourself. But I like this show to be really, really practical, and I like people to sort of come away with things. Now, there might be some people watching this who are thinking like, well, I don't have content. What am I supposed to do?
Okay. Well, I would say that the people watching this, from the people I've worked with, are actually going to fall into one of 2 camps. There will be the people who don't have anything. And my tip for them is, your first step is you've got to understand what's of value to your market. Don't get excited and focus on creating. Focus on seeing what you should create. Because creating something for something's sake doesn't work. You've got to create something of value. So my advice there is ask all of your clients, have your people asking all of your clients, and ask all of your candidates every opportunity you get 2 questions. 1, what are you excited about? Looking ahead over the next 6 to 12 months, what are you excited about for the industry, for the company, for the department, for yourself, whatever the context is? Ask that, let them talk. That's interesting. All of that's good stuff. The next one is probably where you're going to find the really good stuff. As soon as they're finished, ask the second question. Okay, what's got you worried? What are the hurdles in the next 6 to 12 months? And they will just tell you the things they are struggling with. And then you basically have to go and find the answer to that. And it will be out there. If there is a problem in a business world, somebody out there is making money fixing it. There will be consultants, podcasts, books, reports. You've just got to know what to look for. And then once you know exactly what you're looking to answer, the content is much easier to create from your own knowledge, from others, or to simply curate from reports and other things that are already out there.
Okay, so that's people who sort of don't have content. But what about those people who've maybe got content, but it's a little bit old, or they've got like an intranet in the office of like full of all these files that they've never used?
Yeah. Common one is that people have loads of salary reports that they put on LinkedIn twice and got some bites and then nothing else, right? If you've got a piece of content, my advice, the easiest thing to see if what I've just said really works, pick one, the best one you think you've got, and tell everybody on the team that for the next 2 weeks, every opportunity they get where they're not working on a role, They are ringing their contacts, their clients, their prospective clients, and they are just saying, we've got this. I don't know if you've ever been offered it. Would you like it? Right? It's an excuse for direct contact. It's a reason to interact. And remember what I said about those people who used to use the calls for chasing debt, or your old calls of just catch up. You do that. You have everybody do that with one piece of content. A, they're more likely to do it because it's really easy to do. You've told them exactly what to say. And two, some work will drop out.
Okay.
Some work will drop out.
Okay, so I think I'm just going to do a brief summary, Ped, and then we're going to get your top tip. But I think what today's shown us is content is not a one-trick pony. First of all, it's a wide range of things that you can get, not just PDFs and videos. You can have all sorts of other things in between. But I think the key point that we've got from today is how you use it, because it's a tool. You wouldn't use a screwdriver to bang a nail in. I mean, you could, but it would take a while and hurt your hand. You use content in specific ways and you'll get specific results, whether it is direct to a client, whether it is during a campaign, whether it is to differentiate yourself, whether it is to just keep yourself at the top of mind of everybody watching.
Yeah.
Okay, Ped, can we have your top tips? So people are watching this and they're thinking, right, I've got all of these things to do.
Okay.
What do I do?
Right. Become obsessed with asking those two questions I gave earlier. What are you excited about? What are you worried about?
In that order.
Obsessed. In that order. Very important to do it in that order. You ask people what's wrong at the gate, it's a bit weird. Ask what's going well. Everyone will answer that question because they love it. And then they're in the zone of talking to you, right? So in that order, ask everybody. Ask candidates, ask clients, ask prospects. It shows you're interested, for starters. And two, you are very quickly going to understand what they do and don't care about in their market. And that's the hardest bit with content, knowing what to create. There's a ton of support for actually creating it. Getting the right thing, that is 50% of success right there.
Okay, fantastic. And then we've got Francis is just reinforcing that, Pete, that you've meant content that addresses the pain points and curiosities. I like that word.
Yeah.
That's such an interesting things that they're just curious about, that they themselves want to know about, is incredibly valuable. So thank you very much for that, Francis.
Yes, thank you, Francis. There's a lot of ways content can be used.
There is indeed. So I think we're pretty much round up. Thank you to Mike 2.0 for joining us today.
Been a pleasure.
Always a pleasure, never a chore. Next week, Mike is on his hollybob, so we've got something a little bit different planned. I'm not going to give too many spoilers away. We'll let you know next week. But as always, thank you so much for watching, and we'll see you next Thursday.
See you next Thursday.